Hey, Jono, my friend. We're
We're
live.
live.
We are live. Rocking and rolling. Nice to have you with me on this beautiful Thursday. Did you have a
Yeah,
nice heritage?
always. I did all the things. Family time, bra time, had a moment to reflect on South Africa. Absolutely nothing to complain about. I'm Cape Town, and Cape Town was very windy. It's not great for a bra, but I got on top of Table Mountain and had a lekker trail run up there. So it was awesome.
Beautiful, man. Awesome. Lekker. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I see viewers are increasing and everybody is joining. That's great. If you are watching, maybe just drop your name and tell us where you're watching from. And then we also would love for you to engage with us by asking any marketing or business related questions. So, guys, please, if you do have things on the back of your mind you're unsure of, this is the place where you can just feel free to ask questions. No judgment. We're here to help, and we love doing so. That said, got a notification here that the LinkedIn Live is maybe an issue. That's okay. Here's what it is. And today we want to talk a little bit about the different levels of scale. So as a business owner, I'm still going through all these phases myself, but there's different phases and different levels that business owners go through when building businesses. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are not aware of what these levels look like and what you need to do within these levels in order to keep scaling. And I have a saying that says, whatever you did last year to grow is not going to be good enough this year if you want to keep growing, because what you did in the past is essentially good enough to get you the results you've gotten up until now, but it won't necessarily be good enough in order to get you to that next level. So I think today we want to unpack those different levels and maybe highlight what those different stages look like. Again, this is just from Jono's perspective and my perspective. This is not a book of academia that we've read. This is not a specific curriculum that we want to share with you. These are just from our own perspectives. Take it, leave it, and make the most of it, and ask us any questions along the way. So I think, Jono, if you want to off, I think we started at level 0. So we've got 0 to 6 levels, basically. Starting with level 0, which is basically nothing.
I mean, it's a scary place. In fact, I touched on this last week. It's one of my favorite things. I think we spoke about partnerships, but basically at level 1, where you're just a free agent. In fact, let's go back a step, because I think a lot of guys so I've coached a lot of corporates, like CEOs and stuff, and then I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs. And a lot of guys will save up for many years while they're in a corporate job and then bounce and have this one business idea and sort of bet it all on the business idea. And then they arrive in this entrepreneurial space and they realize that idea didn't work, or it wasn't actually a good product market fit. And instead of dealing with just what they had to deal with in their channel with an office job, they're now having to deal with every element of business, so sales, marketing, finance, etc. And it's terrifying. And I actually coached a guy who left his business. He had been an analyst in retail for about 20 years, and then he went to go and start an online store. And he actually ended up closing down and going back into corporate because it just destroyed him, and he wasn't ready for it. And I think that the product market fit thing is the most important thing. And what I've seen is a lot of guys get very precious or like they fall in love with the idea that they have for their business. It's not guys, men and women. They fall in love with this idea that they had for their business, instead of falling in love with solving a specific problem that a customer has. And it's very hard to let go of the thing that you love. That you had this dream, and this is what business is going to be like, and these are the kind of people we're going to work with, and this is how the office culture was going to go. You get miles ahead in what you think is going to happen with your business, and then you come out the starting blocks, and it's actually not a good fit. So for me, that like first stage is all about iteration, and I think what creates a successful, what did Peter Thiel say, like 0 to 1? A successful 0 to 1 is about getting out there and actually being opportunistic and trying every possible way to solve a specific set of problems that you might be, an expert at solving. And then through iteration and seeing what works for your clients, and seeing which thing you probably hate doing the most or that you are the worst at, versus the thing that's costing you the most, and start employing like your first one or two staff members to take that workload off so that you can stay focused on playing to your strengths. I think those are the key 2 steps for me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like if we have to unpack it in a way for everybody to make sense of it, there's, I'd say, like 5 or 6 levels, right?
Yeah.
And if we have to unpack those levels, level 0 is understanding that you've got nothing, but you're thinking about your day job, and you're thinking of a specific idea. I mean, this was me 2018 after I sold my first business, and I was working at a specific company that bought that business for about 3 years or so. And about 6 months before I resigned, obviously, I started thinking about new ideas. I started thinking about, listen, I can help other people grow their businesses through social media the way I've done it for the business that I had initially, the business that I'm involved with now. I didn't have shares, but I was the marketing director at that company. And I was at level 0, where I was like, okay, cool. I've got a concept. I've got an idea. I would love to do my own thing, once again, but what would that look like? So it's almost like you in this researcher mode where you're going, can this actually be something that I can sustain myself and my family with?
Yeah.
Is this something that's going to make enough money for me and to cover my basic needs? And is there actually enough people that have a specific pain point that this problem might obviously solve? Like, what is the total addressable market? And then level one, if you think about it, it's that when you actually making that move, right? When you've still got either a side hustle starting to generate some money, or it's you just left your job and you just started and you're doing, let's say, 0 to 30K, 30, 40, 50K a month, whatever it may be. That's level 1. And that's where you can do everything yourself. That's because that's what I was. I had the skills to go and find clients for VA Media, had the skills to close those clients from a sales perspective. I had the skills to onboard them, do the actual work, creating the Facebook posts back then, and the necessary copy that goes with it, and the videos and so forth. So I had the skills to do everything. And guess what? I had to do everything because I had nobody else. I couldn't afford anybody else to help me. So that's kind of like level 1, which I call almost like the validation phase, because you're validating whether this idea or concept that you have or product or service that you have is actually going to go the distance, and whether it's actually something that you can scale. That's kind of like that level 1 phase. And then, I mean, we can go into just I'm just going to name the different levels and then we can unpack them slowly but surely for those watching. So level 2 in my mind is when you've now got your product or service and you go, okay, cool, this is something that we've got and then we would love to take to market to maybe a bit more aggressively. So you start to systemize the business in a way because you're starting to onboard more clients. And that's exactly what happened to me. I found Gilbert, who you've probably met, Jono, or if you haven't met him yet, I'm sure, at some point you will. But Gilbert was one of the first people we've hired, who's now our head of the agency, and he's helping me on the VA Capital side. He's like a fractional CMO for one or two of the companies. And I met him on LinkedIn, and I was like, dude, I've got 10 clients. I want to get more. I can't handle all of them. I now need someone who can actually fulfill the work while I'll go and look for more business. And slowly but surely, we had to systemize level 2, which I call systemize. We had to start systemizing the business to go, okay, cool. This is now, we've got a product, we've got a solution. It's kind of like validated in the market. People are saying, yeah, we can get more. Let's kind of like systemize the business by bringing people on board, having someone that does the ads, which was Gilbert, have someone that actually makes the sale, which was me, figure out how we're going to now report back to the client in terms of, whether it was a success or not. And then I think level 3, which is like the hiring phase, where you actually have to now go and hire more people. So it was me and Gil, and then eventually we got someone called Melissa, and then we got someone called TJ, and we got someone called Wandile, and before we knew it, we had 5 people. And that kind of like was level 3. And that's, I think, when you're doing like 100K a month, 150K a month, up to all the way to like 500K a month. I think that's kind of like where that level 3 starts and stops. Level 4 I call the managing phase. It's just understanding now is the time when you actually have to start managing people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get stuck there. And then we've got level 5, the delegation phase, where you have to just delegate as much as possible and do as little as possible, where you're starting to work on the business, not in the business. And then level 6 is where you actually take the lead as CEO and where you start to pioneer. So we're going to go through these phases. For those watching, if you've got any questions, please drop it in the comments. I think a lot of people are still enjoying their public holidays and maybe you've taken a long weekend. I see we've got a little bit fewer viewers than usual, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. But yeah, we spoke about the improvisation phase. We're talking about the validation phase, Jono. I mean, reflecting back on your own journey and Real Meal Revolution, maybe just share maybe a bit of context and story, like how you validated that idea in the market and how you actually went full tilt.
Yes. So the Real Meal Revolution validation or improvisation phase actually happened kind of before the book came out. So the website and online business was almost an organic evolution from the book, and the book happened. I mean, let me just say this, like, and you and I both believe in like going with the flow and trusting the universe to a large degree. So I love the personal side of business as well. But with Real Meal, I was back from a sabbatical. I finished a degree, which I've been studying part-time, and I was just back from 3 months in Champagne in France, where I've been making champagne on a champagne estate. And I decided I was going to get into the high-performance eating because I was a chef and I'd done some business stuff. And I basically did a lot of improvising. So I was doing some consulting because you got to get your bills paid. So even for me, it was, even if I wasn't doing the thing that I wanted to do, I needed to earn money. So I was doing some consulting to the company I used to work for. I was helping launch a restaurant. I put myself forward to appear on Espresso, the morning cooking show. And then I bought a food truck because I am entrepreneurial and I wanted to test that. And then I just used to, and then what I call it is, there's a rude way, which is, there's a polite way to say it, which is casting lines and trawling to see what hooks. And the rude way I say is I fling shit against the wall and see what sticks. And so what I did was I just went out and I thought, okay, well, anything that fits into what I think my skill sets can handle, I'm going to just cast lines. So I went and I offered a few restaurants consulting services in exchange for in exchange for like a little bit of equity. And then one thing I did was I sent my wife had lost like 20 kilograms losing weight, and I wanted to do the swim from Mozambique to Madagascar as a side project. And so I was training for the swim, and we needed to raise money for charity. And I thought, wow, like if I wrote a cookbook about the food I was eating while I was training for the swim from Mozambique to Madagascar, I could actually raise a lot of money for charity. And so I went and I spoke to Tim Noakes about doing a cookbook for him. And that was just one of like 10 different lines that I had in the water. And I went on a 2-month road trip to shoot a season of Ultimate Brewmaster. And my wife and I, we actually came second, so we lost. And the day after we got back, I was so devastated because I thought this was going to be my lucky break to be on TV and become this celebrity chef, that I immediately phoned Tim Noakes and the other authors who had involved. And I said, okay, we've got to do this book. It's got to happen now. And so if you came to me in 2013 in August or September and said, Jono, like, what are you doing with your life? I would have said, well, I'm writing a cookbook and I'm training to swim from Mozambique to Madagascar. And people ask me this question and they said, like, bro, are you mad? You got to go out and get a job. So that was absolute improvisation and absolute like wing and a prayer stuff. But while that was happening, I had consulting gigs and I was earning money. So I think we might have touched on it last week. Like in that stage, you got to pay your bills first. And so whatever work you can do to pay your bills, pay them. And then you have to take big bets and entrepreneurial pursuits simultaneously, even if they are different to what you are doing to pay your bills. And that's what's worked for me. And that's what I'm doing now with my new business as well. I want to be making Hollywood feature films if they still exist in 10 years. But I've I'm using the skills that I have, which is content marketing and video production to pay the bills.
Yeah, it's almost like you just improvise everything. It's not just a specific thing that you improvise everything. Because I remember at level 0, when I started at 0 income, and someone would say, can you do X? And I know that I'm actually here to sell Y and Z.
Yeah.
I'm not here to sell, for example, Facebook ads, and they go, can you build a website? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
I'm improvising. I know how to figure it out. I know how to build a website. Well, if I don't know, I'll find someone who does. Luckily, I did know, but it's a situation where you're just improvising. You're going into a sale to sell one thing, and someone asks you if you can do something else, and you're like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm improvising, because essentially we just need money to keep the lights on. That's kind of like level 0 and level 1.
But I've got a question for you, Yandre. Like, so when obviously you go out trying to sell X and Y, like you said, what percent of the first 100 sales that you made were sales of things that you wanted to sell, as opposed to things that a client had asked you to do that you had to figure out how to do in order to make the sale?
Yeah, it's such a great question, man. I'd say 55 to 60%. I would say, like, I was fortunate enough, and it's probably less for most people, but I'd say mine was about 55 to 60% of the stuff that I sold was exactly the things that I actually wanted to do and that I knew I had the skills to actually crush. Yeah. And yourself, like, I mean, have you had a scenario like that?
Yeah. Well, so we were chatting offline last week. I've developed a few content models, which I think they really work. Like, and my first 3 like big retainers are for like a fractional marketing director role, which is not what I had in mind. But they're great. And then way back when with Real Meal, I can tell you now, like, I came back from France guns blazing, and I said, okay, I'm going to become the low carb chef. And my first gig on TV was with Espresso, and literally the first time they called, they said, look, I said to them, I'm going to be doing low carb, so give me a shot if you need anyone to cook low carb. And they mailed and they said, well, we have an episode with Duan's whole wheat bread, and we need you to create a panzanella salad, which is like an Italian bread salad, to promote Duan's. And after my whole like getting on my soapbox talking about low carb, it was my first offer to be on TV. So I said, okay.
You're like, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Straight to Google.
Straight to Google. Yeah, but you got to do it. You got to get your hands dirty. And I think there are 2 schools of thought. Like, one is that you got to get really good at saying no, as Steve Jobs would say. But I think in the beginning, you've got to just say yes to everything until you have to turn work away.
I think it's context to the level that you're at, right? If you're starting out, you're at level 0, you have an idea, you don't know if it's going to work or not, you're going to have to say yes to everything to get a better understanding of what people actually want and what you can actually do, and how you can find the balance between those 2 in order to build a business that you can scale. And I think that then takes us to level 1, and reflecting on my journey, that's when we had like 8 clients or 10 clients. This was in 2018, probably April, May. And I found someone like Gilbert. I was like, I need other people to help me do this. I was at like 100K a month, or 80 to 100K a month. And I remember chatting to my wife, and I said, you know what, I can just chill here. I've got a little bit of free time every week, and I've got a good work-life balance, making good money, if you think about it in hindsight. And this is what I can do. I can have a lifestyle business, I think is what you call it these days. And I was like, I can have a lifestyle business. And she was like, well, you know what? Knowing you, that's not who you are. Like, I always want to grab for the next piece of the ladder in order to continue climbing. That's just who I am. I always want to see how far we can go. So long story short, I kind of thought to myself, okay, cool. I've got 10 clients. I've got other people who's probably interested, who I still can call. This business can actually be something. I'm going to have to find someone who can help me do this. And the universe kind of like sent me a guy called Gilbert Kompokwe. I met him on LinkedIn randomly. He posted a video went to Tasha's with him for lunch in Melrose Arch, and then we just kind of like hit it off and decided to do this together. And it was such a perfect fit because he was like, listen, I don't want to, I mean, I don't mind chatting to these people. Like I can do that if I need to, but I just want to actually do the work. So I was like, cool, well, I'll get the sales, you do the work, and we, build this thing and see where it goes. And that's when we had validation. That's level one, right? That's when we had validation that this is actually something that can grow into something bigger than ourselves. And my role was the seller. I just had to sell. And I think that's where most entrepreneurs ask other people to sell on their behalf. And I wonder if that is the best thing that you can do, because probably nobody's going to understand your product or service the way that you do. Like and I want to give context here, because if you understand your industry and you understand the market and the pain points, and you essentially understand all the nuances that goes with it, I believe in my mind that you have to take the responsibility of to go and figure out how to sell this to other people. Now you can hire an agency and people to help you, but I think as the founder, like if that's probably the biggest skill that you can develop, is really understanding what the market wants and how you can package it. Like if you outsource that to someone else or hire someone to do that for you, I wonder sometimes if it's really the most valuable thing to do, because it's your job in order to keep innovating and pushing forward and improving systems and procedures and create products that the market actually wants. That's what the CEO is all about. Like this, if you think about the big picture, you've got people who can help you guide you, but you're going to have to make those decisions. So if you really want to become the CEO of your company, I think it's valuable for yourself to really act in that sales role, because that's how you get market feedback just so much quicker, and how you can obviously get a bit more agile with your product development as well as your service innovation. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I do think they're two sides of the same coin, because I totally agree that as a founder, I mean, you've seen it in social media ads and a talking head ad. When you are hearing from the person who actually owns the business, or you're hearing from someone who buys the product, like those are the two most convincing people to see in an ad. So it does. I always sold for real meal, and I had people work for me who were in sales, but they really battled to sell the high ticket programs. When people spoke to me, they bought, and when I say high ticket program, like a 20,000 rand coaching program, they would buy that from me. I don't think any of my like salespeople managed to sell those or like very well. But then there's the flip side, where there are a lot of businesses that started organically, and I have a food production client who grew her business over about 10 years, and she's never done any marketing. And it's interesting because in catering, your best marketing is the functions that you do, because someone tastes the food, they say, ooh, like who's doing the food? And they walk into the kitchen and they say, I've got a 50th in 2 weeks time or whatever, please can you quote me on a menu? And that's how it grows. So caterers historically aren't great at marketing, but this particular business has grown in a long-term relationship with one major client. And now their model that they have is able to service different types of clients, but they have no idea how to go out and get business. So in that case, I think that they need either an agency, or it would help them to have a business partner come on board who loves their business, understands it, and is able to kind of take the DNA of that business and their philosophy and their values and turn that into a compelling sales and marketing message that actually communicates what that business is about. And some entrepreneurs are the operational entrepreneur and not the sales and marketing entrepreneur. So that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you've got Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. You know what I'm saying? There's always two people, I believe, that plays a crucial role in the early stages of a business. It's never just one person. I think there's two pivotal characters that come into play, and they complement each other. And when you can find that in your own business, life becomes so much easier. And for me, that was Gilbert for Apple, obviously. We're not comparing ourselves to that, obviously, but it's like for them, it was two people. One had the skill of selling, one had the skill of developing and creating. And I think if you can combine that in any business, whether it's tech, you're going to need a CTO who can code the software. You're going to need someone who can understand how to get corporate clients to say yes to using the software, or direct to consumer, the public, to say, yes, I want to give this a free trial, whatever it may be. And those are the two core components to a business. You have to get people to say, yes, I want to try this. And then you're going to have to deliver on the back of that if you had to simplify it for yourself. There's no business that exists where those two components are not a crucial factor. So one, you have to create demand. Two, you have to deliver on the product or service that was promised. And if you can find people early on in your business that can help you, you're going to play one of those roles naturally. But if you can find someone that can complement you in either one of those weaknesses that you have, then the business will grow so much faster. And I think that's why also, we grew the way we did. Because I had someone who took accountability for fulfillment, and I took accountability for getting people to come into the agency as clients. And I think, like you say, it's different sides of the coin. Depends on where you play and what your strengths are. But I believe it's ROI positive for the entrepreneur to put himself in awkward positions where he gets the feedback and he hears what the customer across the table is saying, and he phones the customers and go, do you want to buy this product or not? And if you don't want to, because that gets you to think differently about what you're actually creating, especially in the early stages of this business. When you hear it from someone else, it's almost like broken telephone, and you don't know if there's enough qualitative and quantitative data that goes into the back of that. So in the early stages of a business, I would want to encourage people to act as that person. And it takes the knock. You're going to take the knocks on the chin and whatnot, unless you have a founding partner who obviously can do it for you. But it's so hard to find product market fit to a product that you can actually scale if you don't get feedback. So and for you as the founder, you need that feedback, if that makes sense.
Well, I got a great example of that. It actually really helped me to see this. So I was doing some work for a client earlier this year, and I got added to their Slack channel as they launched a product. And for background, this guy sold his business for over $1 billion with a B, rand, a few years ago. And so he's now financing a new startup, but he's leading it as well. And the first few leads, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's still going on. He called them himself. So they have a WhatsApp channel, and then they have some phone calls, and he phoned these guys himself. He didn't put the sales team in charge and wait for feedback. And to see his communications in the Slack channel about the feedback he got from the customer and product market fit, it's got everyone else in the business on their toes, thinking about product market fit, the way to speak to the customers. And so, it would be very easy for him to say, I'm not making a phone call. You guys do that. I'm going to be sitting at high level strategy, dealing with partnerships and finance and whatever. But by being down there in the trenches, no sales rep can say anything. They have to do exactly what the leader's done. And it was really interesting for me to see how granular a high level player can get and probably should get. Like, there's no task in that business that's beneath him, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people, they want their business to get to a point where they don't have to worry about that small stuff anymore.
Yeah, because they want to tell people, I've got someone sorting this out for me, or that's sometimes. I mean, I was there. I think if I have to be vulnerable, a part of me felt good by saying, "Oh, I don't do that in my business anymore." This is now very early on in one of my first companies. With V8, it was the complete opposite. With V8, I was like, I do everything and I don't give a shit. I want to build the best business possible. And if I have to take out the trash myself, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? I really don't mind. And I think when I started V8, it was really just I will do everything and try and understand the different divisions I have to build. I can't depend on other people to do that for me, because I feel like that would be unfair almost. So in the early stages, I did everything. And then it was a situation where obviously you found better people who can take care of those roles and responsibilities. But coming back to what you just said, there's Elon Musk as well. If you think about back in the early days of Tesla, he was speaking to people on Twitter, one-on-one, speaking to them. Thank you for buying the product. Let me know what you think. If people had to comment something that they don't like, he replied himself, and he would say, 5 people, I've seen tweets of 5 people saying this, maybe this is something we need to look at, or whatever, or 10 tweets or 100 tweets, whatever. And then they would go and fix that. they would go and fix the specific issue because he was the one seeing it and going, hey, I'm reading this article, this piece of comment, and I'm going to reply to it. And when it happens multiple times, maybe there's some feedback there that we need to consider. And I think we underestimate how powerful it is for you to build the best product out there as an entrepreneur if you actually the person speaking to the customers, especially in the early stages. And that's kind of what level 1 is all about. So for those listening, I just want to give context to where we are. For those listening, we're speaking about the different levels of starting a business. And just for some context, like this is not 100% binary. This is how it is. Every single business is unique. Every single product is unique. There's going to be people who've started $billion companies who've never showed their face, who've never spoken to a customer. I don't know. That's very possible. But we're talking about an average person starting, a business from scratch. And I want to believe that 75% of what we're saying is probably going to be someone's reality. You know what I'm saying? So it's just contextualizing that for those listening. We spoke about level 0, which is just conceptualizing and having ideas, and you probably got a full-time job. Then you've got level 1 where you've actually maybe left your job and you're now out in the market trying to get people to say yes to the product or service, or you're running Facebook ads and getting feedback, etc. That's where we are now, and we can move on to level 2, where I think reflecting on my own journey, that's when I had Gilbert and I had myself, and we were about to hire our third person. We were doing about 150K a month. We just got some very affordable office space as well. And then the reason we were stuck there for so long was because we didn't systemize the business, which is why I put that at level 2. Again, this is my story and reflecting on my, data that I've gone through personally. And for me, we were stuck at 150K for probably 12 months, or I think a good 8, 9, 10 months. And when I started realizing, it's because we're not efficient enough. It's because everything is all over the show. It's because every time we bring on a client, it's just chaos. It's because we're selling every single thing to the client that they want, as opposed to us selling what we actually good at and what we're efficient at and what we're competent at, what we have the resources for. And at level 2, systemized, that's when things started to change for us. And we went from like 200K a month to literally almost 900K a month within 12 months. So true story. So in 2020, late 2020, early 2021, we literally went from 250K a month, if that much, to literally almost 900K a month. And it's because of level 2, where we hired 1 or 2 extra people, 3 extra people, and we started systemizing every single thing in the business in terms of how a client comes on board, how they get treated, what gets said, how does it get said. This is the services we sell. Can you sell us this? No, we can't. That's not what we do now. I can sell you that a few years down the line. But for now, this is what we have and this is what we do.
Yeah, I've got a good question for you there, which is how do you so I've seen even memes about this on socials where people are like have a random task to do, and they, instead of doing the task, they spend like half a day building a system around automating it. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck on. Because just to give context to this, I was laughing earlier. I had a core value at Real Meal when we went through a range of core values. And one of the first core values, because we saw ourselves as a tech company, was automate everything. And that meant like I never want to speak to a customer. I never want to basically like I want to wake up in the morning and see how much money I've got and then go to bed having made more, and we just sit back and watch this thing. And so we spent a lot of time building systems that were probably a waste of time, and absolutely did not add value to a customer in any way, like a chatbot. And in those days, a chatbot was manual, not AI driven. So it was even worse at solving people's problems. So I wonder if you have any criteria that you follow to decide whether or not you systemize something or just get it done.
I feel like almost everything in the business can be systemized if you're creative enough in some way, shape, or form. But you have to ask yourself, what is the kind of stuff you do on a daily basis that the business needs in order to keep growing? So that's how I look at it, is like, what are the things that happen repetitively and that needs to happen repetitively in order to ensure that the business stays afloat and can keep growing? Ideally, you want to systemize those things because then you're building the engine. Like the whole idea is to build an engine that can grow and scale and run. And if you think about it, it's the best place to start is to figure out what are the things that has to happen every single day. Because if you could automate that, or if you could systemize that in any way, shape, or form, it means you can scale so much faster. Because every time you had to hire someone to duplicate that service, ideally your output now has doubled as well. So, for example, I know in 2021 we struggled to find really good, smart, innovative, proactive media buyers who can really run really, really good and amazing e-commerce Facebook ads. And this is something we have to do on every single day for the agency in order to survive. Something we have to do whether we like it or not. If we don't do it, we will fail. So we can't automate the service because that requires time and energy and IP, and a person has to be physically running the ads. But what we could do was find a way to train people to get up to scratch as quickly as possible, so that if they come into the agency where it would take them 3 months or 6 months to get to the level where we needed them to be, we can now get them there in 4 weeks. And we built like a whole training module, like a training course, very intense, about how we run ads and why this works for e-commerce businesses based on the data that we have. And that allowed us to hire more people at scale. Because the problem we had in the past was we would bring someone on board, they wouldn't be a good fit, or they would crush the interview, but then 3 weeks later, they actually realize they don't have the skills. You need to teach them this. You have to nurture them here. They have to. And I was like, we can't sit and do that if we really wanted to aggressively scale. We need to get people up to speed faster. So we need to hire better caliber of people as terms of a human being, like someone who's ready to work hard, graft, hustle, etc. Fast learners, proactive with how they think and work. So if they can tick those boxes, we can teach them what they need to know on how to actually run ads successfully and how to grow an e-commerce business successfully. So we built this whole course, and that changed the game for us. And then we've done this in many different departments as well. Like that's just one example. But yeah.
No, well, you raise a good point there, because it sounds like that part of systemizing for you is actually HR. So, for instance, having a training course is an HR practice, and then changing the way that you hire, or not changing, but like being very deliberate about what you hire, which almost takes you into level 3. So part of getting through level 2 is actually arriving at level 3, which is what you spoke about, is that hiring. And I have to tell you, I think I mentioned last week as well, like I've made some bad hires, and we were talking about it over the weekend. I read all the books on business and learned, and culture, eat strategy for breakfast, and all those catchphrases. And so I have made such an effort to hire people on culture, because I believe that if we employ people who are obsessed with personal development, we would be able to make an impact and change people's lives. And the problem that came about there, where I was too focused on the culture, meant that I actually dropped the ball on skill and proficiency. So I ended up employing a lot of people who are amazing people, who I still love. Like I'm mates with a lot of my old staff, but they were not competent.
In the job that they had to do, right?
Yeah. Did you ask what is the job they had to do?
No. They were not competent. There was like a bit of a pause. I was saying, you mean in the job, not that they're not competent individuals, but they were competent in that specific area that they.
Yeah, they were they weren't they were the right people, but not in the right position, and not necessarily doing the right things right. So there was only like one fraction of rightness out of the whole hire.
Dude, the same thing happened with us as well. Like, so 2018 we started. 2019 we started hiring a few people, and I think I'm not going to mention names, but I remember the one guy pitching up in a suit, amazing human being, just had such a lack of engagement with him. Conversation was flowing, energy was high, everything I asked was just properly answered, and I was like, we're going to hire this guy. I don't even have to interview anyone else. pitches up on a Monday late, ask him where his laptop is. Oh, I didn't know I needed a laptop. I thought you're going to give me one. I was like, and I clearly said, I asked him, do you have a laptop? So, and back then we didn't have the funds and the disposable income to just go and buy laptops for everyone. So like a necessity, like you need a laptop if you want to do this job. And I remember he pitched up and he was like late, number one. Secondly, I didn't have his laptop with him, even though I asked him specifically if he's got a laptop. I was like, why do you think I'm asking if you've got a laptop? If you didn't think that you have to bring it. Like again, I can probably communicate better too. I've learned a lot over the years, obviously. But it was a situation where I just couldn't get the job done. You know, there was always excuses. He talked a lot, and there was nothing. You would hear the most beautiful story, but if I go into the ads manager account or I go into, I was like, nothing's been done. I just need to do this myself or get someone else to do this quick. And to a point 3 months later, after probation, I was like, listen. And we've had probably 4 or 5 of those kind of people. I can tell you horrible stories, funny stories as well, probably. We had one guy who was a drug addict, and you know, it was a complete issue. I paid for him. I'm going to be vulnerable. So I found a guy from Cape Town. I'm sure he's a good person and a good human being. However, my experience with him was the day I said, let's do this. I sent him a contract. He accepted it. He goes, can you buy me a new laptop? Because mine broke a week ago. Cool. Buy him a laptop. He goes, I want to move from Cape Town to Joburg. Can you help me? Cool. So I helped pay for the move. I gave him an advance on his salary. And I think 8 weeks later, I was in for 100 grand already on this investment. And one of my clients tells me, listen, this guy's been invoicing me on weekends. Is that like something you do? It's like, I wasn't aware that, you know, this is additional hours that needs to be compensated for. And if so, are you familiar? Are you happy that I paid the money straight into his account? I was like, what do you mean? Like, I wasn't aware that he's working on weekends and doing that. Long story short, it turns out, or at least it's allegedly, at least to me, it was I perceived it as someone who's just taking a massive chance and who was trying to, you know, steal money from the company. Maybe not intentionally, but just had to do what he had to do in order to cover the bill that he obviously had. And I remember phoning him saying, listen, don't come back to the office. Keep the laptop, keep the loan, keep everything. I don't want to go through a lawsuit or whatever. I was like, just don't come back. And if you do want to take me to the CCMA, this is what I'm going to show. This is what I'm going to tell them. And I've got all the proof. And he was like, cool.
Yeah.
And he just left. And I never heard from him again. So we were terrible at hiring people. We got lucky with our first 4 people. And I think, you know, I met a Gilbert, I met a TJ, and I met a Wandile, and all of those are still in my life. And you go, oh, we're great at this. You know, I'm great at hiring. And then you hire someone, 3 or 4 or 5 people like that consecutively, and you're like, shit, man, I need to get better at this. And then also that's when we built a system for the actual hiring of it. So we have a system now where, for example, you have to do a quiz. And if you ChatGPT the quiz, we already know that you're probably going to do that. That's okay. So you're probably going to get full marks. And then we're going to get you on a one-on-one interview, a one-way interview software. So what that means then is you jump on a software tool called Wamly. You do an interview with the actual tech on the other side, ask you questions. You've got time to reply to it verbally, obviously into the camera. So we can see if you're looking away. We can see, you know, what kind of personality you have. We can understand what levels of competence you have because we ask the most difficult questions, you know, first. And you only have a specific time to answer those questions. So when you press record, the question pops up. So you don't really have time to research the question as much as you would ideally want. So it's really just whether you have the actual knowledge in your head or not. And then we move people over to a one-on-one interview, you know. So we've got a system that now generates leads for careers. And then we put them through a quiz. We look at salary expectations. We look at their total score. Then we have a look at the one-way interview. So Gilbert and the team, whomever's the HOD of that department, can go and check whenever they've got free time what those interviews look like. And then they go, I want to schedule a one-on-one interview with that guy. Because all we realized was most of our HODs were spending 5 hours a day on interviews as opposed to running their departments. Yeah, I mean, it's 2-3 interviews a day when you're trying to hire at scale. And then it becomes quickly 3 or 4 hours where you're just sitting there talking, and you realize this person is not going to be a fit, but now you try and be polite. And so we realized we were wasting so much time just trying to find people. So that was one of the things that we systemized that helped us a lot, which is great, which is also touches on level 3, which is the hiring process. So I kind of like touched that now.
Well, so offline we were chatting about the difference between coaching and being a coach and being a captain. And I like that analogy that you use, because it talks about a sports team. And if you look at a rugby team, you've got 15 players, but actually there's a backline on the forwards. And usually, regardless of where the captain is, there's a leader of the forward pack and there's a leader of the backline. And it speaks to what, a lot of guys talk about it. Jim Collins talks about it in Good to Great and Built to Last, where he says that the perfect sized team is a team of about 7 people. So no more than a family sized pizza could feed at lunch. And so a lot of people say, okay, well, then you should be the coach among those people. I almost feel like if you say that you're the coach, it sounds like you're the highest ranking officer. But one of the pieces we haven't touched on is that at that level, when you've got 5 or 6 staff and you are the leader, I think to see yourself as the captain of a team is probably more important, because a captain still has a coach. And at that stage, I know that you had a lot of really good mentoring and coaching outside of your business, but I believe that at that stage in a business, we have to have, if not one, but like a few consultants, mentors, coaches to help us mold this business into something bigger. Because if you're running a small business, servicing clients and managing 6 staff, you don't have a lot of time to look at your business from the outside. And that's where you want to get to. You want to get to the point where you're working on your business. But at that point, you are so fully in your business that I think it's really important to have some kind of consultant or mentor. Mentor is probably better because they're usually free and they're much more qualified than you are.
No, 100%. So I think for us, it happened around 500K a month, 400, 500, 600K a month when we were at that level. And remember, we were an agency, the V8 Media, one of the companies that we own as an agency, which is a revenue versus resource business. So more revenue you want to make, the more people you need to hire, because someone has to do the work. And it's a situation where, reflecting back, and I clearly understood it. I think we had 10 people at the time, or 8 people. And I was like, oh shit, okay. Now it's getting too hectic for me to want to be involved everywhere. And luckily, we had the right people to start taking accountability over their different departments. And I was like, from now on, in my mind, mentally, I can't remember if I actually I did sit with the team, but I never made a company-wide announcement or anything. But it was like, okay, cool. We're up to 10 people. We're now going into the 15. We're probably going to get to 15 people by the end of this year. I need to now make sure that I only, to be the most efficient and add the most amount of value, I need to have HODs that cover the different departments, and then I need to be working with them. I shouldn't be getting involved in how they run their departments, but I need to act as a consultant. And I think at that level, I started acting as a consultant and a soundboard for the HODs in the business. So it was like, cool, we have systems on how to do certain things within the department, which is great. Now, in order for them to help them and deal with the stress and anxiety and the bigger picture and the questions that they might get from people that they're working with, I started acting as a little bit of a consultant, and I still do. If someone has an issue, they come to me and I just consult. I don't never make a decision. I go, this is probably what I would do. This is how I would look at it. And I think that's kind of like what a captain also does, I suppose, in a way. So for me, it was more of a consulting role. But if I have to, captain analogy is so perfect because we're still a team. And people go, hey, captain, what do you think we should do? Should we kick to poles or should we kick to touch? And then it's up to you to go, cool, well, I think this is best. However, in this case, I give the information and they pick whatever lane they want to pick. And I like that because if that lane is not the right lane, they learn from it more than I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you tell someone do this and it doesn't work, then the level of accountability is now less. and they point fingers going, you told me to do that, it didn't work, what do I do now? But when you go, these are the options, and this is probably kind of like how I would do it. However, these are the alternative options that's also feasible, and they pick one of those options themselves. Now there's a level of accountability, and the feedback is a lot more impactful. So if things don't go the way they wanted to, I feel like it's a bit more impactful because ultimately they made the decision to choose that.
What do you think about cash at this point? So, because you've got, often when you're on your own and you're doing the improvisation, you're kind of like clutching at straws, getting cash in the bank. And I mean, I know that in a production company, you need an editor and gear, and then all of a sudden you've got like 100% margin, and then you're down to just paying overheads. So that jump is very obvious for that type of business. But when you are hustling and getting paid, like, what is your advice for someone who is trying to get to that 500K a month mark, even if they're like under 100K, for how much they should be taking out versus how much they should be using to grow versus how much they should be hoarding for a rainy day? Like, when do you hire? Do you hire the moment you get a big deal, or do you hire one, do you just keep it on contract for as long as humanly possible until you got a 3-month cushion and then make a hire?
Yeah, such a great question. I don't think there's a specific answer to that, but I can tell you my thinking behind it. And it's really, whenever we want to hire or create a division, a new division, for example, you want to ultimately, when you want to make sure that if this doesn't work out tomorrow, are we still okay? Like, I'm a very risk adverse human being. Like, people would say, hey, you're quite entrepreneurial, like you've got all these things. I'm actually just a businessman, to be honest. Like, and businessmen, like, if you just think business, then you're not massive when it comes to taking risks, actually. Like, I don't take huge risks.
Yeah.
I'm not your classic cut entrepreneur. And I'll say that vulnerably and openly and transparently. It's like, I don't think I am a guy that's going to go, this is a product, I'm just going to smash it into the market and put all my life savings into it and hope it works. Like, that's not me. I'm a bit more conservative when it comes to spending money. I am risk adverse, and I don't like to take risk that I don't feel comfortable taking. And every now and then, when it excites me, obviously there's a level of excitement that oversees the stress and the anxiety, obviously, and that makes the risk a little bit more tolerable. However, in this case, how I look at it is that, how quickly can you stack up money that can create a runway for the business for at least 3 to 4 months? So what I mean by a runway is that you want to stack up enough cash that you can cover your bills for at least 3 or 4 months if you had to lose all the clients and customers tomorrow. So that was the first thing I did. And I was actually on a small business TV show with Elon Reyes, and he actually it's something I had in the back of my mind, but he gave me like a clear-cut formula. And he said, I'm pretty sure he said, or it was a conversation that he had with the previous guest that I overheard. I can't remember, but it was in 2018, and he said, how much runway do you have? To me, and I said, like, I've got like four months worth of runway. And he goes, cool. If I was you, I would now take all the profits and reinvest it back into the business. Whatever you need, because for 4 months you can, if things don't go the way you wanted to, at least for 4 months you can still cover your bills. And I think once you've got some cash flow in the bank and you can sustain yourself and the needs of the business, let's say it's 100K a month and you've got 400K in the bank, now the amount of risk that you can take is a lot more in theory. Like, you can make bigger decisions. You can hire people knowing that at least you can cover their salary for the next 3 to 4 months. So if you had to now hire someone for 20K or 30K or whatever it may be, let's say you hire a junior employee, it's someone who's is their first or second job, you hire them for 10 grand or 12 grand or whatever it might be, whatever's affordable based on the needs and the competency. I would like to believe that I can at least cover their salary for 3 months without having to stress about it, like, or 6 months, depending on your own timeline. And I never want to be in a position where I hire someone and then they go, oh, well, where's my salary this month? And I go, oh, sorry, bro. Like, there's just no cash in the business. It's like, bro, you took on the responsibility to pay my salary, and now you can't. So I think for me, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people don't understand the severity and the importance of you hiring people and then taking accountability for those people and their financial needs.
Yeah.
I think so. For me, I would ideally want to understand that I can cover this person's salary for the next 6 months, and or at least minimum on 3. And then my question to myself would be, if I hire this person, how will that impact the revenue or the efficiency of the business? Would it make me more efficient? Because that's the first thing, is like, can I be more efficient? Because if I can be more efficient, I can do more things that can make more money. Can the company be more efficient? If the company can be more efficient, the company can make more profit essentially, and then help cover those bills. And what would the impact be on revenue if I had to hire this person? So is there additional top line revenue that can come in? For example, a salesperson, that's an easy person to hire. It's like, okay, cool. If I hire an extra salesperson, hopefully we're going to make extra sales. So I don't need 6 months worth of salary that I can cover. I only need 3, because technically, if he's responsible for sales within the first month or 2, he should be covering his own salary and commission structures and everything else, etc. If it's efficiency, it's like, cool. How will this person improve the efficiency of the business, and how will it increase the profit of the business? Then it'll be like, cool, let's make sure we can cover your bill for 4 or 5 months, whatever. And then if it's impact, but those impact might be a bit more long term, maybe it's culture, maybe it's an HR department, maybe it's something that'll be something where I'd look maybe at a longer time horizon, like 6 months or so. Because that's not something that's going to make the company more revenue or profit overnight, but it is something a company needs in order to keep making the revenue and profit that it's currently making, if that makes sense. So I think that's kind of like how I look at it. Those 3 things. It's just efficiency, impact, and how it will actually make the company just better in general, whether it's short term or long term.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I think you're right. I think that when it comes to HR and bookkeeping, I remember going through this with a business club I was in, and I think if you at a certain point, like for us, I think it was the 500,000 rand threshold. It becomes essential to have in-house bookkeeping, in my opinion. And for companies that collect money, often, a lot of companies look at their financials when actually they should be looking at their bank account, because the financials will tell you a wonderful story about profit, and actually you need cash. And so we went through this whole analysis, and the group of guys had businesses doing between 500,000 a month and 1.5 mil a month, and they all worked out that actually their businesses would save so much more, would make so much more money and be so much more cash positive if they took a hit and paid 20,000 rand a month to a salary for someone managing debtors. Yeah. Absolute key component. And then, but at that point in the game, if you're doing like between 500 and a million a month, a 28 or 25,000 rand a month salary for someone to collect cash, I think that's on the very high end, by the way. Is, if you compare that to them bringing in another 100,000 rand, 2 or 3 weeks or a month earlier every time, it's like the maths like tells the story. And then the HR expense, it's a grudge purchase for a lot of people, and a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't put the value on the people as much. They get tired of their staff instead of realizing their staff are like getting tired of working there. And they don't necessarily connect the dots between a really, really powerful and functioning HR department that's building culture, that's showing the company's interest in the people, that's trying to get the best out of these people's careers and keep them engaged and interested. And I think that between 500 and a million is probably a good time to start putting that in, even if it's not a full-time HR, but like an HR fractional HRD.
Well, that's exactly what we did, man. So I think from our side, that's literally what happened. This is a true story. So we had 14 people in the company at the time, 14, 15 people. And the one person came to me and he said, listen, I'm resigning. I'm starting a new job in 30 days. I was like, why? Why you, bro? Like we were getting along so well. You're doing so well. He goes, no, I'm resigning because my contract's coming to an end. Sorry, he said, I'm resigning because my contract expired and you never gave me a new contract. And at the time, I didn't know this. But if you receiving UIF and PAYE from your employer, and if the fixed term contract came to an end and you're still paying it, then automatically the contract is still valid and you're now seen as a permanent employee. Nuances around it. But in this case, technically, legally, he was a full-time employee. He just didn't know it. And I wasn't proactive enough I didn't have someone to be proactive enough to say, hey, listen, your contract's coming to an end. We're going to turn it into a fixed term contract, a permanent contract. And he was so stressed and anxious for like 30 days, and he had no one to chat to. He didn't want to chat to me because he was too scared for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then he just said, look, I'm resigning. Thank you for everything. It's been great. But he said it like, bro, I had a great time. He wasn't upset with me. He was just like, I'm leaving because my contract came to an end. And, I'm grateful that you've paid me 2 months extra on top of my contract that I was actually here for. I was like, what do you mean, bro? Like, where are you going? I need you to stay. He goes, and he already accepted a job, and it was a great opportunity for him. And that's where I learned the valuable lesson of, setting up an HR department. And I assumed everybody is just going to come chat to me when they have an issue. Like, I assumed people feel comfortable to come chat to me. I assumed that people know my door is open for them. I assumed people feel that they can chat to me about business issues and personal issues. And that's the biggest mistake I've made. And we should just never assume, first of all. But I realized there needs to be a dedicated person that can talk to them about issues at work, issues in their personal life, and how it's affecting your security at the company that you work at. And that's when we brought someone on board who was a fractional HR manager. And that helped a lot because now people could speak freely about, hey, do I have maternity leave? How does this work? There was someone to answer those questions for them. Because when they asked me, I was like, I don't know. What does the contract say? You know what I'm saying? It's just not my forte. I just did the formalities when I needed to, and that was it. And then I went on with my day trying to focus on the next thing. So super crucial during the stage of hiring and managing people, which is kind of like the level 4 stage. Where we are today. Like, what
I got something to add to that, by the way. Like, I think it's something that's a lot of young, not young entrepreneurs, but early entrepreneurs battle with, is letting people go as well. So when we started, we had, like, I think I mentioned last week, we had about 5 different business channels, and we had all these people supporting the different channels. And my partner said to me, Jonna, like, we've got one product here that's making us so much GP, and all of these other people are here servicing departments that are actually costing us money. And he said to me, and at the time I didn't really listen to him because I didn't want to hear it, but he said, if we let everyone go, we would have, I think, 80-something% GP, and we'd be clearing basically like 350,000 rand a month net profit every month. And instead we were sitting on this massive staff overhead, and they were all working on things that, might have worked, might not have worked. And I remember the day of reckoning. Like, there was a day where we had 20 days to get enough cash in for to pay salaries. And because of the way business worked, we knew how much money we had because we were largely subscription driven. And I knew 20 days before that we were going to have to go into overdraft or like have a miracle to go and pay salaries. And we had enough cash to retrench everyone. And instead of retrenching, I decided to come up with another business model which would need more staff to actually service, because I didn't want to admit to myself that I'd promised all of these guys a bright future when I was selling them, selling the business dream to them. And also didn't want to admit to myself that we couldn't afford to hold all of these people, because as an entrepreneur, it's nice to have staff and to be a provider. So my ego got in the way so big time. And actually, it was so stressful for those staff to be in a situation where they weren't sure of the business's future. And it kicked the can down the road for them to actually go out and find jobs in a company that, they had a brighter future at. And so there was no upside to keeping these people employed other than the short-term stress that I was protecting them from. But I knew in my gut, in my heart of hearts, that it was a matter of time. And in the process of not allowing them, not retrenching them, I got the business into 350,000 rands worth of overdraft, and complicated their jobs more by launching another business model. So I think, and I've seen my mentors do it as well. I know 2 mentors who've done this, who, when they're iterating the business model, and it seems very cruel, but they hire people and then have to let go of them the moment they realize that actually that business model is not working. And for me, being protecting the business while respecting the people is like the toughest tightrope to balance on in those early stages of business, because it can absolutely destroy culture as well.
Dude, yeah, I think a lot of that, I mean, that's at least in my head how it feels all the time. Like, I mean, I always feel broke. It's weird. Like, it's a situation where no matter what revenue or profit we make, I just always feel broke, and I have that level of anxiety of like, is everybody going to be okay? I spoke to someone today, and he says, "Listen, it's probably never going to go away. Like, it's just you just cope with it. Because we'll have like a record month, and then I'll still be anxious. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm grateful and everything, but I'll be like, do we have enough? Can we keep growing? Is this fine? Like, what new department are we starting? Are we doing the right thing there? Should we be doing that? You know, how do I handle the conversation if it doesn't work out? And it just never stops, really, in my opinion. However, I do think you can be a bit more calculated with your decision making as a business. That's what I've realized. Is like, if we tackle on a new opportunity, a new business idea, or a new division in the company, it has to be calculated, and there needs to be enough objective data to prove that this is something we need to do, and that it is something that's got a high likelihood of success. And yeah, that those spreadsheets will always, be hypothetical till the tire meets the road. But it's really making sure that this is really the best thing, because often you'll lay at night as an entrepreneur. I think we all struggle with this, is that you just come up with a random idea and the next day you want to go full blast on that idea. It's like no objective reasoning, no spreadsheets, just like, this is going to work. Like, we need to do this. And then there's like a whole month of putting something together or an idea together. And then you realize it's not going to go pan out the way that you wanted it to. So for me, it's when we do new things, I had to learn this the hard way, and I had to learn this lesson on repeat, probably for 4 or 5 years. But that is this really complementing everything else that we're doing? Is this really something we desperately need, or is it something that's going to be as successful as we think it would be? And then I tick those boxes, and then we give it. I literally give it like a few days. Like, if something excites me, I literally give it like 3 or 4 or 5 days, maybe even a week sometimes. And then I go, cool, let me make a decision now. Because often, especially early on your entrepreneurial journey, every single idea excites you. And it's almost like, oh man, and you can't stop thinking about it. And now with AI, you're starting to build a platform or a website for it. And before you know it, you've got everything ready to go. And the biggest lesson I've learned is just take a week, speak to the right people, get some information from the market, speak to a mentor, speak to your team, figure out how it's going to work. And then after a week or two's time, or however long it needs to take to do your due diligence, then decide if that's something you still want to do. So don't make decisions in the company based on your own emotion. And I don't mean emotion in a negative or a positive. It's just sometimes we have this gut feel or this level of excitement that we have to go full tilt on this thing, or this is the new thing, or this can work. And it excites you, and that excitement can make you make the wrong decision sometimes too. As much as negative emotions can make you make the wrong decisions, positive emotions can also lead to the wrong decisions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say probably more the latter than the former, actually, because when you're feeling like on top of the world, you kind of get this dangerous, invincible feeling.
Yeah. We can do anything. Let's just go for it.
Yeah. Everything I
So
touch turns to gold until it turns to cuck.
100%. And we've all been there. And that's the funny thing, is like, I think people looking at the outside, they assume that most of everything that we do some way and some level is a success, but it's just not, right? There's so many things that fail. Like, I mean, the list can be endless. Maybe it's a live show for another time where we can actually just unpack and work, and that it's okay. And actually look at strike rates. Like, what is the actual strike rate between a good idea and a good actual success story? Because that, I believe, is
No, I was just saying that's a terrible ratio, the strike rate. Like, and the thing is that everyone on the outside, can you hear me? I feel like I lost you.
Yeah, my internet is a bit dodgy.
Okay. No, we're talking about the strike rates. No one sees the failures. That's the thing. Because if you were launching, people will only see what is successful, because most of the people only see it once it's like on the ads and you're talking about it a lot. But if you launch something with like 3 reels on Instagram and a small paid ads campaign and it bombs, people will forget it ever happened. So what they see is like the highlights package, which are the things that you've launched that sustain. And that's probably, I don't know, like, I feel like I'm on like a 3 out of 10 ratio, maybe.
Same. Listen.
Yeah, and that's a fail. That's a high school fail, 3 out of 10.
Yeah, that is you're going to be stuck in matric with those scores.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, we've been very fortunate with our first three investments, right? Our first three investments shot the lights out. Two companies shot the lights out, and the other one is growing sustainably every year. There's more profit, more revenue, more consistent, bigger team, etc. But that's a local business that takes time to scale. But we're looking at Glute, we're looking at Sentimental. Both those companies shot the lights out. And, you were speaking about we can do anything. Like, let's just do it. And it's not the time for this conversation yet. But there is an investment that we made that didn't go the way we wanted it to for many different reasons. Actually, there's a couple. But long story short, this morning I was actually thinking to myself is that, what is the next thing? Like, now I'm looking at the next opportunity, almost overthinking it because I don't want to be in a similar situation. And that's why I was like in the shower and I was just like thinking about the next opportunity that we're looking at. And I'm like, man, I don't want this to be a replication of the other 2 or 3 ideas that we've had and experiments that we've had. And it almost made me not do it. And I was like, no, man, everything checks out. I'm following my gut on this one as well. After looking at the data, let's give it a shot and see what happens. And sometimes you can also talk yourself out of it. Once you've gotten a few knocks on the chin, your ego gets a bit bruised and you get a bit vulnerable, and it's almost like you get a bit insecure because it's like you're looking at everybody else's success and you're going, everybody else is getting it right. But what we tend to forget is that they also had 7 knocks on the chin in the third one, or the 8th and 9th and 10th one worked out. It's the first and the third and the first, second, and third one that works out, and then they get 7 knocks on the chin after that. So it's like it's just, or you get 3 right, get a knock on the chin, get 3 right, get a knock on the chin. You know what I'm saying? It's it is just you're always going to get knocked down, and I think we just need to always be as objective as possible, and then just fucking go for it and do it properly. That's also one thing I've learned is like, if you turn the stone, turn it properly. Like, do what you need to do in order to make it work. Don't walk away from an opportunity, or don't remove yourself from a deal if you can truly say, listen, I've done everything possible to make this work. It's almost like a marriage. Like, I mean, we were a company now which we're dissolving, and it's exactly that. Did we do everything we can? Yes. Okay, great. What else is there to complain about? We did everything we possibly could. Now it's on to the next thing. And that's one thing I've realized. Like, when you say yes, make sure you do everything in your power to make it a success. And then if it is a success, great. If it's not, at least you can put your head on the pillow knowing that you've tried your best.
Yeah. There's nothing more depressing than quitting something when you know that you didn't give it your best. That's like it always leaves these unanswered questions. Like, and you still got to say goodbye because it might not have been the right thing anyway. But just to know that you didn't. Yeah.
Especially if there's potential as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's really, if you reflect back and you're always going to go, what if, man, what if? So for me, I don't want what if moments. Even if it's an average opportunity that we've kind of said yes to for some reason, I don't know why. They know, like, let's give it our all. We have to. Cool. So we've spoken about level 0, which is improvisation, when you have got nothing really, and you're just trying to figure shit out for yourself in terms of what you're going to sell in the market. Level 1, where you are literally the person responsible for literally everything, and it's just you, and you're getting to 80K, maybe 100K a month. Level 2 is kind of like where you start to realize, hey, listen, I need maybe an extra person. I need some systems and I need a quoting system. I need an invoicing system. I need systems in my business to run more effectively. And that's maybe up to 150, 200K a month. Then at level 3, you're going, hey, listen, we need to hire some more people. We need maybe like extra 1 or 2 or 3 people in order to make this business legit and get to the next level of growth. And that's where you need to, just bring on the right people that can help you do that. Level 4, once you've got people, someone needs to manage them. And I think that's at like level 500 to 1 million, 1.5 million a month, where you're realizing, cool, I'm now becoming a manager, in air quotes. I have to, play the role in helping people build out their systems for their departments, making sure I oversee everything that I need to financially for the business, or making sure we're heading in the right direction. And then that brings us to level 5, which is from 1.5 million a month and up, where you really just delegate, I suppose, like where you really are the person who should ask yourself, am I spending my time on things that are actually making an impact in the business? And everything that's not making an impact should probably be either automated. There's 3 things I say. It's automate, delegate, and what's the other? Terminate. So what I do with those 3 things is when I get a new responsibility for myself, or we're getting involved in a business or something, I ask myself, is this something that I can automate at all? Can AI do this task for me? Is it something like scanning my emails and telling me which emails I need to reply to first? Like literally, I built like a little tool back in the day that would scan the context of my emails through ChatGPT, like linking Gmail with Zapier. I think now there's tools that do it automatically for you. But I remember actually going, I only have so much time to reply to emails. So I'm only replying to the most important emails. So I asked ChatGPT, look at my Gmail account, connect it with Zapier, added OpenAI in there, and I said, scan the emails for importance and tell me which ones I need to reply to on a daily basis first. So in the morning, I'll get a report saying reply to these emails, and I'll just go to those emails and reply to them. And that was a simple example on how to automate something that took a lot of my time. The other thing is, can I delegate it? Can I actually outsource this to someone in the company or someone external? If I delegate it, is it going to be internal or external? And then lastly, you will be surprised how many things you can just terminate and it wouldn't make a difference. Sometimes we do stuff and it's like, oh, I don't need to do this anymore. And then when you stop, you realize, why did I do this in the first place? Like, why did I keep, doing a specific, I can't think of an example. I'm trying to think of something. Maybe I don't know if you've got any examples, but I think there was a time when I used to spend a lot of time writing emails for my newsletter list. And this was even after AI came out. And I was still writing everything myself because I was like, I don't want to be the guy that writes AI writes my mails. I want to sound like Yandre. And then I was like, okay, cool. But why am I even doing this? I can probably just use ChatGPT for it. That led it to the automation side. There was something else in the business that recently happened. I think we had a subscription model for something in the office. And parking, someone had to go and get parking tickets, or I don't know what it was. And I was just like, how many people use parking tickets on a monthly basis? And then we realized there's only like 2 people or whatever. I can't remember. And then we'll sort them out. Now we're much bigger and now we're sorting it out again. But at the time I realized we're not going to get parking tickets anymore. Like I had to walk there myself, and there was somewhere in the center. And when I reflected back on it, I was like, I'm just wasting my time to go and buy parking tickets. And then I realized only 3 or 4 5 people use it. Trying to think of some other examples too, but anyway. So
I mean, my classic is sending proposals. In fact, I watched I was actually I edited a video for a guy who's the sales expert, and he used to get like an inquiry, and then he would go and research the business and have one call and then send a proposal. And he started using online proposal software like PandaDoc or one of those. And then he went through his analytics. And you can see how much hang time they spend on each page. And what he found was that like 98% of the time spent on the proposal was looking at the price breakdown at the end. And so basically he put this whole thing together and show these clients how he's like gone to town on researching their business and understanding their values and everything. And like the people buying his training did not care. They're like, okay, what's this guy going to charge? And so he stopped doing these proposals, which were taking like half a day at a time. And his close rate did not change by 1%.
That's a beautiful example, man. And I think it's so true.
Yeah.
100% so true. Even with us, like we stopped doing proposals. I mean, we'll do it for big brands when we're doing pitches and stuff like that. And obviously, I would like to believe we're efficient at it. But we used to go, this is another one. We used to go and see every single client in person. I remember flying to Cape Town for 15 grand a month. And this was in 2018. Gilbert and I on the plane. Tickets cost us half of that. And And we were like, well, it's 15K a month. And then in 2021, we were like, well, now we are fully a remote agency. And we are not going to go in person unless it's obviously a client that we really like and really appreciate, and someone who is maybe a big business that does where a video call is just not going to make sense for this kind of conversation that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Most of the people we've never seen, and then we just have video calls with them, and we were like, well, we're just going to do video calls. And we have 140 clients now in the agency, and if one person goes, well, we're not going to work with you because you don't want to see us in person, it's like, you mistake thinking that someone who sees you in person cares more about you. That's not true. Like, you have this illusion that if someone comes to see you in person that they truly care more about you. No, they care about making money from you. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they're most likely going to see you in person, not because they care for who you are necessarily, but just because they know that you're going to have a higher likelihood of saying yes, so you can pay them the money that they want. But I promise you, there's people who care about you more than you think, who's probably never met you in real life because they have an online relationship with you. So I was like, we're not going to do in-person meetings anymore. That was 2021. You know what? We grew by 4x that same year. And then someone was like, you should go and see people in person. You'll sign a lot more business. I was like, the data suggests otherwise. Another example was, man, I had it at the tip of my tongue now. I can't remember now. This was at the tip of my tongue, but it was something to do with meetings as well. We used to send, I don't know if we do it now anymore. Like, I might be contradicting myself, but I remember at some point we used to send reports every single week. And we realized only like 5% of the clients actually wanted it or read it. So now we ask people, do you want to report every single week? And then after like a week, after a month or two, we go, do you still want these reports every single week? Or are you happy to just do a monthly catch up or a bi-monthly catch up where we meet every 2 weeks or whatever?
I've got a great example after you.
No, it's just like, we thought everybody read their weekly reports, and then we realized only 10% of clients did. So what we do, we canceled the other 90% and didn't send them weekly reports, and just went on a call every 2 weeks with them. And then the people who wanted their weekly reports because they were too busy for calls and just wanted to get an overview of what happened in the last 7 days, we kept sending it to them. So we were 90%, we reduced 90% of that service. And it made us more efficient because now we had more time to do other things.
We used to send a weekly report. So on Wednesday, we used to call it WAM Wednesday in weight loss. And so WAM meant weigh and measure. And so we used to send a weekly Wednesday email to remind all of our members to like get on the scale and stuff. It's not really my vibe anymore, to be honest, but at the time we did it. And then after, we did that, Andre, it must have been for like a year, maybe even 2, where we sent that email every Wednesday. And then we looked at the data and we looked at when people are canceling their memberships the most. And we had thousands of members at 95 Rand a month. And the highest cancellation rate was on Wednesday in the hour after we sent the weekly reminder. So yeah, it's wild. So obviously people were reminded that they are members, but they also, because of it also reminded them about their weight. And a lot of people, when they realize that the program's not working for them, they cancel. So we actually stopped emailing everyone to remind them to weigh themselves. And instead we started emailing them like once a month with a whole lot of awesome content. Like, this is a rad recipe, here's a cool meal plan. And our cancellation rates dropped significantly because people weren't having, we want them to stay members as long as possible. And we made the mistake of thinking that they wanted to be, that they needed to be coached into actually getting the results. And that's what people want when they want a coaching program. But when people are on a subscription, they actually want access to all the benefits and the resources, because a subscription doesn't demand a specific outcome. And so we just started promoting the resources that we had, as opposed to getting like holding up the mirror and kind of beating them with the weight loss stick. And it shifted a lot. Cancellations dropped massively.
Yeah, man. I think we'll be surprised. I wonder if everybody had to look at their daily. I did this exercise once. I did a spreadsheet where I literally literally. It sounds like I had just 3 whiskeys. Literally, I wrote down every single task that I was doing on a daily basis. And then I would categorize them and give them a score. So I'd say, this is a 4 out of 10 based on impact in the business. This is a 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever. And everything that was under 6, I reflected on and I went, like, why am I still doing these things? It's not really making in my job, in my mind, and this is the role I adapted for V8 when I was still very involved, was that I am responsible for generating revenue and profit. Like, that is my job. Nothing is more important than making sure we generate revenue and then trying to make sure that we're profitable. That is the one thing that I will do, and I will do exceptionally well, and I want 80% of my time to go to that. And then I was like, okay, cool. What are my tasks are actually helping me generate revenue, and what are my tasks are actually helping me streamline the agency in order for profitability? And then I realized I was still managing a client's account here. I was still in meetings here. I was still doing this. I was like, but oh, geez, if the objective is really to make revenue and profit, then this is not the best way to spend my time.
Yeah.
So I think in this final stage, I want to end it off at actually the level 5, which is delegate, because I think that's when you're doing between 1.5 and 3 million a month, to be honest. And and from my opinion, I think once you start delegating and then you're really asking yourself, am I spending my time on the most impactful revenue generating opportunities in the business, then you'll start to reflect and go, oh, geez, I'm doing a lot of stuff that's not that important. So for me, I do 3 things now. Content creation, this is a part of it. Networking opportunities, and then deals. That's it. Those are the 3 things. If I promise you, there's nothing I do that's not aligned with that. So if it is something that I need to do that doesn't fall in that, it'll be a very short amount of time, will be very limited, or it'll be once off, but it's not a daily or a weekly thing. So is this a networking opportunity where I'm getting to meet someone who's smarter than me, who's more clued up than me, who I can learn from and inspire to be like, and is that an opportunity for me? Yes, I'll do it. Someone asked me the other day, like, oh, I've got this big company, they need someone to consult. Are you very interested? And respectfully, I was like, I would be very keen. However, I'm happy to network with them, but then they can potentially chat to someone else, or they can chat to someone in my team who's willing to consult. But it wouldn't be me, just to set expectations clearly, because I don't want to be in a situation where now I'm exchanging my time for money. So networking, deal making, and content creation. That's really the 3 things I spend my time on doing. And if anything falls outside of that, I really consider it with heavy thought on whether it's worth doing or not.
Yeah, that's smart.
Well, yeah, I'd like to believe so, but you never know.
Well, it's sufficient. I mean, and I think that to have 3 3 main things at any stage in the business is important. Like for me, mine at the moment are creative, conceptualization. I'm actually like less networking. Well, no, I'd say networking and sales are kind of hand in hand. So I'd say networking, sales, and creative direction are the three things. And it's very easy to get distracted at this stage in the game, but those are the 3 main things. Yeah, and I think this falls under what is this? This is it sales? No, this is content creation as well. Yeah, but networking.
Yeah, again, like from my point of view, everything looks different to everyone, right?
Yeah.
And ideally, as the person heading up the business, I think you want to make sure that those 3 things that you do, that you actually enjoy them as well to an extent. I'm not saying you're going to enjoy every single moment of it, but it's important that you actually find it fun and exciting to do, because otherwise you're going to burn out very quickly. And then on top of that, you need to be competent to do that, or you need to learn the skills on how to be competent at doing that. So if I think about myself, like I'm learning and experimenting with content creation, and I find it fascinating. I might not be great at it, but I am learning and I am improving, I'd like to believe. But I just love it. So this is where the love is over here, but the competency might be over here. You know what I'm saying?
We,
And
we should have a whole session on content creation. Actually, I think it's something that every entrepreneur absolutely needs to get into, in my opinion.
We can do that next week. Dude, I think I've taken 90 minutes of your time. I don't know how much time you've got left.
I'm over my limit already, but it's been great.
Something wrong with our comment section today, because we had the same amount of people live and we didn't have, I think people are struggling to make comments for some reason. I don't know if there's a tech software, but I wanted to answer some questions, but we don't have any. And I think it's because I might have turned the setting off by accident. I'll have a look at that. Because we had the same amount of people, actually a bit more, but didn't have any comments. So sorry about that. From my side, yeah, man, it was lovely chatting to you. And as always, I think always have great engagements, and there's always value that's shared.
Yeah, thanks, man. You too. Right back at you, Yandre. It was awesome. Yeah, it feels like Monday today because of the public holiday yesterday, but there's only a day and a half left of the week. So this has been a great way to spend the morning. So thanks very much.
Thank you, man. And thanks for those tuning in. Thanks for giving us your attention, and we hope we were able to do justice. And then we'll see you again next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. Much love to everyone.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, man.
Cheers,
Check you later.
Bye.